You're watching special coverage of the West Virginia Legislature special session on the West Virginia Channel, a service of West Virginia Public Broadcasting. Today's special session was called by Governor Jim Justice last week following the approval by voters of the road bond referendum on Saturday, October 7th.
Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 2001 by Senators Carmichael, Mr. President, and Prezioso by request of the executive exempting military retirement income from state income tax.
Bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Senate Bill 2002 by Senators Carmichael, Mr. President, and Prezioso by request of the executive allowing certain tax information be shared with designated DOH employees.
Bill be received. Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and bill be read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the bill first time.
Senate Bill 2002 allowing certain tax information be shared with designated DOH employees. First reading of the bill.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be suspended, and the bill be read a second and third time.
Bill be advanced, and the motion before us is that the constitutional rule requiring a bill be read on 3 separate days be suspended, and that the bill be placed upon its passage. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than 2/4 of those elected and voting and present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the constitutional rule suspended. The clerk will read the bill a second time.
Senate Bill 2002 allowing certain tax information be shared with designated DOH employees. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. Senator Trump moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the strike insert amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The strike and insert amendment adds a new section to the bill, adds an existing section to the bill. This bill now, if the amendment is adopted, will amend a single section of code that already exists. That's in Chapter 11, Article 10, Section 11. And then it will, as the introduced bill did, create a new section also in Chapter 11, Article 10, and that's designated as Section 5CC. So the purpose of the bill, as it comes to us from the executive, is to make sure that as the state moves forward with this enormous investment that the voters have authorized in highway infrastructure in the state, that contractors, subcontractors who are going to be doing this work are going to be remitting the taxes that they're required to pay to the state tax department, and also taxes that they are required to withhold from their employees, many of whom, vast majority of whom we hope will be West Virginia residents, but some may not be. And that's been an issue, as we were told by the administration previously, that you have, sometimes you have a worker from out of state where his income taxes weren't properly withheld. So the idea behind the bill is introduced, and the strike and insert amendment is to make sure that the information can be shared between the state tax department on the one hand and the Division of Highways on the other hand regarding the payment, remittance of taxes. There is, it's similar to provision which exists in the law now for sharing of information between tax department and other entities. In Chapter 11, Article 10, Section 5S, there's a section that authorizes sharing between the tax commissioner and the Department of Labor, Department of Employment Security, Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, and Workers' Compensation, but nothing for highways. And so I think the governor's right to want to make sure that there is that mechanism. So this new section in the bill, 5CC, Section 5CC, will allow the tax commissioner to enter into an agreement with Commissioner of Highways for the sharing of information. And there's a list of 9 items that can be shared, and they are whether a bidder has a current business registration certificate, whether a contractor or subcontractor has had his business registration certificate revoked or suspended, whether there's been a cease and desist order applicable, whether a contractor bidding on a contract for a road project is in compliance with employer withholding tax requirements in this state, whether a contractor who has a contract appears in compliance with employer withholding tax requirements set forth in Article 21 of Chapter 11. Article 21 is personal income tax. Whether there's compliance, whether the contractor is in good standing, a bidder or a contractor or a subcontractor is in good standing, whether or not a bidder or a contractor has pending appeals or contests of any assessments with the tax department. There's a definition in this section of good standing, and it's in subsection B. And what it says is that the bidder or contractor or subcontractor, 1, has filed all the tax returns required, 2, has paid the taxes required to be due as shown on those returns, or 3, paid all the withholding taxes for the employees of that contractor or subcontractor. Subsection C allows the tax commissioner and the Division of Highways to amend their agreement. And then we have added a subsection D, which says simply that information in the hands of the Commissioner of Highways that comes to the Commissioner from the tax department is going to enjoy the same level of confidentiality and privacy that the information has when it's in the hands of the tax department. So we had questions earlier about, you know, what does this mean? Does this mean the information, if once the Division of Highways get it, is it foiable? Can they find out what, you know, everybody's taxes are and everything else? And rather than comb through the entire code and define what would be confidential, what would not be confidential, what we're saying is when the Commissioner of Highways has it, it has the same level of confidentiality, whatever that is, as it enjoys when the tax commissioner has it. So we're not making anything confidential that's not currently confidential. We're not loosening any confidentiality rules. We're saying the information is subject to the same rules in the hands of Commissioner of Highways as it has when it's in the hands of the tax commissioner. That's the whole new section. The amended section is an existing section of code. It's section 11 in the same article, and that's the section that, the subsection that says before final settlement of a contract with the state, there are certain things that can be withheld for reasons for which a final payment to a contractor can be withheld. And we just added some language here to make it clear that the final payment can be withheld unless, the new language is, unless the contractor has paid all the withholdings for its employees to the state that are required to be paid. We'll make sure that, you know, we're not going to send final payment to some contractor who hasn't been remitting the withholdings for his employees and then have them vanish into the ether with no way to get the money back from the employees if they, you know, vanish into the ether. So that's the point of that. And the law already exists to allow the final payment to be withheld if the contractor hadn't paid its taxes. But what we're adding is language to say the final payment can be withheld if it hasn't paid into the tax commissioner remittance of the withholding for the contractor's employees. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer questions about the strike and insert amendment. Otherwise, I urge its adoption.
Further discussion? Not. Senator from the senior senator from the 8th.
Will gentleman yield, please?
Senator yield. Senator does yield.
Senator, just one quick question on that final payment that could be withheld. What about subcontractors who are contracted with the general contractor? Any way to control that they've paid their taxes?
The language in the, it's a great question, the language in this subsection says that, and this applies more broadly than just the state in this section of the code. It says all state, county, district, and municipal officers and agents making contracts on behalf of the state or political subdivision shall withhold payment in the final settlement of any contract until the receipt from the tax commissioner of a certificate to the effect that the taxes imposed by Articles 13, 24, and 21 and 24 of the chapter, and incidentally, those are, I've learned, 13 is B&O tax, 21 is income tax, and 24 is corporate income tax, against the contractor or required to be withheld by the contractor have been paid or provided for. So I guess the answer to the gentleman's question is literally, unless a contractor is required to withhold taxes for a subcontractor, that probably isn't going to apply.
So a general contractor could have 10 subcontractors who could be fully paid but still owe the state money.
Well, but now they would be, that information would be in the hands of the tax commissioner and the division of highways under the other section of the bill, because the breadth of that does include bidders, contractors, and subcontractors.
Very good.
So, you know, if they're following the law, a contractor who hires a subcontractor in West Virginia to do part of a job in West Virginia, the subcontractor is required, just like the contractor, to be registered to do business, to have a license from the state tax department, and under this to be, you know, withholding for its employees.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
But to answer your question, when the state reconciles with the general contractor, it probably is not going to withhold from, it probably can't, under what we've done here, can't withhold if a subcontractor has failed to do something like that.
So is it the general contractor's responsibility then to make sure those subs are in compliance?
Legal responsibility? it probably would be a matter of contract between a general contractor and subcontractor, and I'll just confess that I don't know the nuances of the tax code to know whether or not it rises to legal liability on the part of a general contractor. We have a couple members of the body who are general contractors who may know the answer to that question without researching it, but I do not.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
If not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed Senate Bill 2002, allowing certain tax information be shared with designated DOH employees. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? The senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have anything to add to the explanation of it. I will say in support of this legislation, I think it's a good idea. And we're talking about the taxpayers of this state making a pretty enormous investment into infrastructure projects throughout the state. And this bill that comes to us from the governor is a good idea. And the idea is to give the Division of Highways and the tax department a line of communication so that the taxpayers of this state who are going to foot the bill for these projects know that people are remitting and paying their taxes as they're required to before they get final money, and to make sure that the people who are the companies that are going to be bidding and winning and performing these jobs are in compliance with our law. I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question for the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment passed. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Ohio moves the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills?
Senate Bill 2003 by Senators Carmichael, Mr. President, and Prezioso by request of the Executive, implementing special hiring procedures for DOH and Tax Division.
Bill be received. The Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent the bill be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the bill be read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Clerk will read the bill a first time.
Senate Bill 2003, implementing special hiring procedures for DOH and Tax Division. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent that we proceed to the 11th order of business.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Introduction of guest. The senior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the junior senator from the 17th and the senators from the 8th, pleased to welcome the Black Diamond Girl Scout Troop 1839 from Charleston. They're here to obtain their government badge. If they could stand and the Senate make them feel welcome.
Further introductions. Further introductions. The senator from Ohio County. The senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also seated in the President's Gallery and on behalf of the two senators from the 5th District, we have Brooke Lunsford. He is the owner and proprietor of Ona Motor Speedway in Cabell County. It was a historic location where Richard Petty actually scored 3 of his 200 NASCAR wins, the winningest driver in NASCAR. Brooke, please stand, and Senate, would you make him welcome?
Further introductions? Further introductions? The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at noon.
Are there announcements? The senator from Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Due to the session over in the House at 5 p.m., LOSIA will now meet at 6 p.m. this afternoon or immediately following the floor session in Senate Finance Room.
Further announcements? The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your meeting on Joint Committee of Health scheduled at 5 p.m. in the House chamber has been canceled, but the locker will still be at 3 p.m.
Further announcements? Chair has an announcement. Chair would like to announce the availability of the list of Senate Standing Committee appointments on the Chamber Automation System. Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent that the complete list of Senate standing committees shown on the Chamber Automation System be ordered printed in the Journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Further announcements? Not. The question for the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at noon? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at noon.
You've been watching special coverage of the West Virginia Legislature on the West Virginia Channel, a service of West Virginia Public Broadcasting. The Senate will return tomorrow at noon. You've been watching the West Virginia Channel. We return to regularly scheduled programming at this time.